Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument, hosted by the militant, Marxist, anti-Santa, Martyn Bradbury. The Bradbury Group is streamed live on Rover, Sky TV, YouTube and Facebook. Proudly sponsored by whānau, journalism you can trust. Let the arguments begin.
Kia ora Aotearoa. The true demarcation of power in a late-stage capitalism, liberal, progressive democracy is the 1% richest plus their 9% enablers versus the 90% rest of us. And once you see politics through that lens, the left can never lose an election ever again. Welcome to the Bradbury Group, election 26, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. I'm your host, the editor of the daily blog, Martyn Bradbury. Bomber to my comrades, Mr. Bradbury if you're nasty. My pronouns are us and we. Coming up on this evening's show, the political panel all-stars tonight are Green Party candidate, the mighty Tania Waikato, listener, columnist and militant cyclist Simon Wilson, and political commentator, the brilliant Dr. Harpreet Singh. Tonight's one-on-one in 10 is Economist Cameron Bagrie on soaring unemployment, house value slump and a stalling economy. What the future challenges are influencing the economy right now. Our extra one-on-one tonight is Māori economist Professor Matt Roskruge from Massey University on the impacts of that economic malaise on the Māori economy and community. Shout out to Kiwi Skirt and Kiwi Bird for moderating tonight's YouTube page. Good evening to all the Bradbury Easters watching online right now. You make this show one of the most watched live podcasts in New Zealand, and your comments will appear on screen as we go. Shout out to our wātia, Facebook, Rover, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Sky TV whānau. Remember to like and subscribe because that's all that is holding the fourth estate together right now. And our Twitter panel this evening is Tim Selwyn and Samuel Hudson. They'll be tweeting live online at Twitter, hashtag the Bradbury Group. This show can only happen because we have a huge team of brilliant and bright studio staff, and currently they are crowdfunding for the AUT film project. So if you can chip in some dollars, please do so in the link that will be going up in the comments section. Before all that, however, is this week's War on News. Brothers and sisters, let's be honest. The Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, isn't having a very good month. His weird attack on the Rotorua business community, his weirder decision to rule out TOP, and his weirdest move to announce a referendum on MMP, which no one in his party seemed to have any idea about. These actions combined have started demanding one simple question that must be asked. Is the Prime Minister stoned? A National Party Prime Minister attacking the business community would be like Labour punching a union delegate or Te Pāti Māori burning down a marae. And ruling out a lifeline away from ACT New Zealand First while announcing, out of nowhere, a referendum on the entire electoral system all have the vibe of heavy cannabis user about them. I, for one, welcome our Prime Minister if he has joined the stoner fraternity and look forward to more stoner announcements like riding a bike to his next Mike Hosking interview, baking Winston some brownies, or demanding a Dancing with the Stars dance-off with David Seymour. If, however, the Prime Minister is not smoking high-level THC skunk, I can't explain his actions. As of this minute, right now, Chris Luxon is still the leader of the National Party. Paul Goldsmith's Crimes Amendment Bill passed its third reading last week, and it's now all on for ZB dads, uncles banned from Christmas who subscribe to the platform, and your sovereign citizen neighbour who listens to Reality Check Radio to start rampaging the nation with citizen arrests. Allowing citizens to legally start manhandling one another is a recipe for disaster. I'm not sure why I, a post-Marxist anarchist with violent environmental tendencies, has to be the one to point this out to you all, but the New Zealand police are the only ones with the training and legal checks and balances to forcibly restrain you. The people this vigilante sport will appeal to won't read the fine print about the legalities. They'll just grab some kid they suspect of shoplifting and all hell is going to break loose. Government shouldn't encourage citizens to start physical confrontations with one another. National want to empower vigilantes ACT want to arrest disruptive children, and New Zealand First wants to strip migrants of their voting rights. If you are not concerned with where this country is going, you are not paying attention. And finally, the planet is burning. Uncontrollable wildfires have erupted around the world as heat waves burn humanity from the face of the planet. Nationals' answer to any environmental issue regarding climate change is always more cows, while New Zealand First and ACT believe global warming is a socialist hoax. With the strongest El Nino ever recorded, looking set to peak over New Zealand, bringing devastating drought, unprecedented wildfires, and a cursed burnt harvest, our denial will soon be impossible to mask. Hilariously, the very agricultural sector with the political muscle to block emission standards and not fund climate adaptation will be the first screaming for a handout when they are hit by climate change. In the words of the great oracle and warrior poet Mike Hosking, happy days. The political panel all stars up shortly, whānau, but first this week's 1 on 1 in 10 with economist Cameron Bagrie. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful.
Evening. Nice to be here.
Comrade, normally our economists, business journalists and commentators are all cheerleading the animal spirits of free market capitalism, but you have bucked that trend and written a damning indictment of where you think the New Zealand economy is headed and the massive headwinds coming our way. Your three main points are the Middle East is a subset of the biggest geopolitical and geostrategic picture, the shift from the Great Moderation to the Great Transition, and populism as angst drives political blowback. Do you think Kiwis comprehend the enormity of the global forces now influencing our economy?
I think you probably over-dramatise what I've actually written, right? But I think you're part way there, because what's going on at the moment is an awful lot of tension between what's called the short term and the long term. So in the short term, we've got real economic pain in the form of rising inflation. And guess who inflation hurts? It hurts the poor. So you can guess who the poor are going to vote for. And then we've got these big transitional shifts that are going on. We need to restore productivity within this economy. You know, productivity drives well-being, that drives your economic base. There needs to be a common sense bit of economics about things. There's a whole lot of tectonic shifts that are going on around the globe. So we're sort of caught between the short term versus the long term. And we've got an economy that's going from what's called the Great Moderation, which is, the Great Moderation is a term to describe what happened between 1993 and 2020. We're now in the Great Transition. And that transition involves a lot of change. The next 20 years is not going to be like the last 30. It's not going to be a bad 20 years, but it's going to be a different 20 years. And we just need to get our heads around some of those structural shifts.
Iran have made it clear they intend to toll the Straits of Hormuz. Many commentators have described Trump's war as the greatest geopolitical blunder since invading Vietnam. Do we need to accept a new global economy with a new premium on everything that passes through that strait? How much will that fuel, do you think, global inflation?
Well, Hormuz is a subset of a bigger global picture. And the bigger global picture is that, MFAT, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 2023, they came out with navigating a shifting world, and they had some key themes. Is guess what? Power now trumps rules. Guess what? It's not about just in time, it's about just in case. And guess what? It's about security in food, energy, and technology. And it's only been 2026 that we start to see the government actually come out with using those lines in regard to the world's a different place. But if MFAT's talking about in 2023, then the narrative probably started in 2019, 2020. So this sort of stuff. What we're seeing in Hormuz is a subset of what we're seeing in the Ukraine. It's the big tug of war between the United States versus China. It's not a bad world. It's just a different world. It's a little bit more like the 60s and the 1970s. just a little bit more volatility.
You note the great moderation to the great transition. How concerned are you about China and American competition in the Pacific?
Well, when you see China starts launching a missile, it sends a bit of a message in regard to what's going on. And yeah, China's a $20 billion export market, and America's what, 9.5. Well, I'll give you a heads up. If push comes to shove, we're going with the Yanks, we ain't going with China. So there's a threat here. And talk to anyone in Australia as to what happened a few years ago when Australia upset the Chinese, and all of a sudden, wine exports into China found there was a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So we've got a delicate balancing act. Yeah, we're playing Switzerland in regard to what's going on here.
Do you think that Winston's comments, which have been denounced as racist, do you think that helps with that balancing act with China?
Well, no, it doesn't. But let's be honest. If you look at what's going on around the globe at the moment, there's a rise in what we call national conservatism. We're seeing it in the UK. We're seeing it in Australia. And you play the nationalist card, ownership of state assets. You have a pushback against immigration. Winston's playbook is what's happening across the Tasman in Australia with a certain politician over there. Pulling against it, right? So the politics worldwide are playing into this. And I tell people at the moment, it's almost like we've got a certain modern day version of Rob's Mob of the 1970s and the 1980s.
Yes.
If you go back to the 1970s, the 1980s, you had Rob's Mob with these, disaffected working class people that found their real wages are going backwards. They jumped from Rowland, they jumped to Muldoon. Well, we've got a whole group of Rob's Mob at the moment. It's the younger generation. It's the female vote.
Yes.
Where they're going. It's the older generation. You've got all these groups of disaffected people, and we're seeing it coming through with the likes of support for the Opportunities Party. People are just like, no, well, I've had enough. Your Labor and National, your centralist party vote, they're combined getting about 60% of the vote.
Yes.
Which means the rest is getting 40.
Unemployment is up, house values are down, and business liquidations have soared a massive 71% in the 3 years under National. New Zealanders look to their governments for solutions. When does this become a political problem for National?
Well, it's already a problem, but the economy is transitional. Our old economic model of selling more expensive houses to each other, well, those days are done and dusted. Immigration. Yesterday's story. Tourism-led growth. Well, tourism is still at 93, 94% of what it was pre-COVID levels. We're embracing on a different economic model. You go down to Canterbury, Otago, and Southwind, and you get a completely different economic vibe to what you get in Auckland and Wellington.
Absolutely.
We're actually seeing an export quality, income-led recovery, which is actually a good thing. And it's just taking a little bit of time, and as I said, it's part of the big economic transition as to what's going on.
Economist Bernard Hickey argues the austerity program the government has embarked upon worked in the 90s, early noughties and 2010s because private debt was so low. He makes the point that households are swamped with private debt now and can't afford the extra the government are loading up onto them. Is he right? Is the entire strategy of the government wrong?
Well, we haven't seen fiscal austerity yet. The government in the 2024, 2025 and 2025, not the 2026 budgets, but they actually injected more money into the economy than what they were stripping out. So all the fiscal savings are backloaded into the fiscal forecasts. So in any government at the moment is in an absolute fiscal straitjacket in regard to delivering on going to surplus. So it's going to be interesting to see. I call it the you got what's called the trilemma. Governments, what do you want to do? You want to return to surplus? You want to inject money into public investment infrastructure, and you want to maintain the value of core government services, Well, you can do 2 out of 3. You can't do 3 out of 3 unless you're prepared to raise taxes. You know, so which political parties are prepared to be honest and say, well, look, we're going to raise taxes. So I don't have a problem with raising taxes as long as I'm getting bang for my buck.
For many, their greatest asset is their house, but with valuations flattening, it no longer provides the security it once did. You warn of populism as angst drives political blowback. How do you think that economic insecurity will manifest when people are feeling poorer?
Well, we're already seeing it at the moment. You're seeing it at the polls in regard to what's going on. The fact that, you've got a politician such as, Mr. Henry has come out, and what's he decided to play into? Populism. Well, this is what goes on. When you get big structural changes across your economy within society, i.e. we're dealing with old issues, we're dealing with big structural change, demographics, we need to shift the whole economic model, you get a society that's grumpy.
Yeah.
And it's not just in New Zealand, it's in the United States, it's in the UK, it's in Australia, and it plays into populism politics where we call it promise me nomics. You get out there and you promise me something that people think's going to work. Well, guess what? Odds are it ain't going to work. Finally, but it's promised me nomics in regard to where things sit.
Finally, comrade, with 2 more OCR rate rises predicted before the election and the economic impact of a super El Nino not yet factored in, do you think the economy can turn in time for the election for National?
I actually think the economy is in a little bit better shape than what's been openly acknowledged. I think the National Party's issues are far more than the economy. And let's be honest in regard to what's going on in the next sort of 24 hours.
Yes.
Right. You just have a look at what's happened in the past week.
Yeah.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the economy. That's about, the people in New Zealand are pretty straight shooters in regard to, and you can make a few mistakes, but you can't make a couple in a week.
Right. Do you think Finally, do you think Prime Minister Luxon is safe tomorrow?
I won't express a view on that, but what I will say is that the National Party needs to be an awful lot better about communicating what their economic strategy is.
Thank you, Cameron, for your insight and your oversight. Cheers, comrade. The political panel all-stars up shortly, whānau, but now this extra's 1-on-1 in 10 with Massey University economist Professor Matt Roskruge on the impact of the failing economy on Māori. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful.
Yeah, kia ora, Bomber. Thanks for putting up with me.
Always. What do you make of Bernard Hickey's argument that austerity can't work because private debt is too high? Now, I accept Cameron Bagrie's point that the government is borrowing more, but they're borrowing more while hollowing out all those public service budgets.
Yeah, look, I mean, you only have to walk around Wellington at the moment if you're lucky enough to get there. Things are really tough in the public service, and you're seeing that flowing on to businesses closing. Like you said before, 71% increase in liquidations. It is really tough out there, and austerity right at this moment, I think, is just hammering. The regions were already doing it tough. Now we're starting to see the urban centres really get hammered by that withdrawal of funding. And it's at a time when our infrastructure is really crumbling. Things need investment, genuinely need investment for us to have this infrastructure still functioning in 10, 20, 30 years, or resilient to the next earthquake, or resilient to the next storm. And at the time when we need money going into that infrastructure, there's a good business case to be spending. You've got a political party saying, actually, no, we're gonna not spend right now. We're not going to worry about fixing up that infrastructure. In fact, we might just hold off on having the expertise or the crews out there doing the work. Yeah. So I mean, to me, it seems like, you keep borrowing capacity, you keep money back for a rainy day. It's a rainy day now, and we need that money spent for our infrastructure to be able to cope. Yeah, it's beyond me why it's not getting spent.
Unemployment is 5.6%, but 11.5% for Māori, 11.9% for Pacifica, and 25% for our 15 to 19-year-olds. 51% of Māori households are going without enough to eat, and 860 New Zealanders are considered poor. The government promised growth. Where is it?
Yeah, look, we're certainly not feeling it. And I think they're starting to create a new message around, hey, there's going to be growth in the next term. And we're not seeing a pathway yet to that growth. It might be there, it might be achievable, but we're not seeing the pathway for it to be to come through. To be fair, I don't think any political party is really communicating how they're going to grow us through what is looking like increasingly turbulent global economies. We're incredibly lucky that food and fiber is going really well. We're lucky that US beef herds are down, that Ukraine war is causing all of this drama in the supply chains, and our dairy and our beef is worth, and our lamb is worth a hell of a lot. Doesn't feel lucky when you go into the supermarket and look at a leg of lamb for $90.
Oh no! No.
But that's what's keeping the economy afloat. Is that food and fiber. I don't think that we should be relying just on that luck as a growth strategy. We need to be talking about, well, what else? How are we going to utilize? I mean, massive underutilization rates among Māori. I think it was something like 23% of Māori in work had less work than they wanted. I can't remember what the generic rate was, to be honest. I was only looking at Māori. But, we've got an economy that we're not using all of our resources. People are feeling like there's no pathway out of this cost of living trap. Yeah. Everybody's feeling a bit nihilist after COVID-19 too, if you haven't noticed. And there doesn't seem to be a plan to turn it around.
The Prime Minister lectured the Rotorua Business Association about a child-parent relationship, but doesn't the government have a role to play in creating the environment in which business can flourish? And that means effective social policies alongside an actual economic plan. This government demolished Labour's infrastructure pipeline that saw tens of thousands of construction workers leave for Australia. If it is a child-parent relationship, isn't National a bad parent?
You'd have to wonder. I mean, businesses require social and physical infrastructure to do their jobs, and digital increasingly. And we've seen, as you say, for the last political term, the government really pull the foot off the gas, and in fact put it on the brake around social policy. And so, yeah, you'd have to think that. I think it's a fair characterization that if you're talking about a parent-child relationship, or another way to word it is the state's supposed to coordinate, right? It's one of the best things the state can do is help to coordinate everyday economy, conduct it, get things flowing. And instead it feels like we're getting sort of ad hoc, short-term, reactionary policies with three different parties sort of steering it in three different directions. And they can't set the sort of the rules of engagement. They can't coordinate the symphony. And the economy is starting to really suffer, and businesses are really suffering because they really don't know what the future looks like. They don't know where the funding's going to come from, if there's going to be enough employment around for the people to buy their stuff.
You have Māori negatively impacted economically, socially, and now their political rights are under attack. Why has this government ignored their own voices, like Doug Graham, like John Key, like Chris Finlayson, in favour of a far more race-baiting policy platform?
Oh, your guess is probably better than mine. It surprised me, and I think it surprised a lot of people. In the last election, I think people thought, you're getting another centrist government just with a slightly different colour on the flag. And they've been blindsided by the pullback, the minimisation, the what would you call it? The negative impact anyway on the Māori economy, and how much that's really hurt whānau Māori and interrupted those. You had iwi that was that are starting to build global businesses and create real impact for the regions, which the whenua that they're looking after is in. The whenua can't go anywhere. Yeah. The money ain't going anywhere from iwi. And if you got a government that is really interested in regional development, you would think boosting iwi, boosting the Māori economy is the way to get the regions growing.
Right.
But No, just doesn't seem to be.
The green wealth tax has been criticised by Treasury, who claim the mega wealthy will leave New Zealand and will get less revenue. Why can't we put an exit tax on and all wealth to avoid capital flight the way a dozen other countries have?
Yeah, look, I mean, one thing I think is clear is that we probably do need to look seriously at where we're going to raise taxes from, and it doesn't have to be on labour. There are lots of really interesting ideas like yours, and I'm sure you've got others for where we could be raising taxes.
Oh, I've got
and not
so
hurt
many
people's
ideas,
pockets.
Matt, so many ideas.
But when you look at our infrastructure, when you look at trying to afford an aging population and all the other challenges that we're facing, we need more money coming in the door to deliver our social services.
Right.
If we want real universal healthcare, we need the money coming in the door, and we need to get really creative about that. And the rich, I mean, people love New Zealand. They genuinely love New Zealand. They want
Right.
to be here. They want to live here. We're a stable democracy, a long way from the troubles of the world. The climate's beautiful. the
Where
view's
else
beautiful.
can Peter Thiel get a bunker? You know,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe we should go into
a
the
bunker
bunker
tax, a bunker tax.
Yeah.
Finally, comrade, what happens? What happens if National Act in New Zealand first actually get back into power?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's for the Māori economy, that would have to be up around the worst case scenario at this stage. You're probably looking at a weaker national on the numbers that we've been seeing,
Right.
and stronger coalition partners. And we've seen a strongish national really struggling to be visible in
Yeah.
its coalition as it is.
Yeah.
How that's going to look in the next one, and the impact on the Māori economy from another 3 years of being marginalised, finding even like amazing industries like Māori media, like Wātea, just devastated under this government.
Yeah.
And yeah, it created such an important social service and great source of employment, launched some amazing careers.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your insight and oversight this evening. We will get you back on before the end of the year.
Thank you, mate.
Be well.
Take care.
Okay, now to our political panel all-stars. Our first panellist is one of Auckland's favourite sons, militant cyclist, recreational urban designer, and student voted most likely to have a vegetable patch. Listener columnist Simon Wilson. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the week, please, sir.
I'm going to say opportunity. Opportunity for Erica Stanford, opportunity for Chris Bishop perhaps, opportunity for Chippy, you might think. Chippy, if you're listening, this is your moment to shine.
Yeah.
What's he up to? Not taking the opportunity. And of course, opportunity for Kulai Wong.
Yes.
Opportunity, I think it's pretty clear now, will be in Parliament
Right.
after the election. And I would only say to that people who are going to vote for her need to be a little bit careful about what they wish for, because Kulai Wong herself has made it very clear that they are not set on any particular program.
Well, they have been ruled out by National.
Well,
Options.
Their headline policies are not deal breakers, and I think that's
No.
to their credit that they're
Yes.
saying that.
Yes.
People are going to vote opportunity, I think, simply
Yes.
because
They're sick of the
they're sick of
calcified
sick of all of the rest.
tribalism.
Yep.
Yep.
But what I would say is, party vote should go to the party you believe in, not the opportunist. I think this might make a good.
And the only
sort
one
of,
we believe in
whatever.
is Greens.
That's what. Well, you know. Yes.
Our next panellist is literally Yes Queen. She's a social media phenomena, matched only by her philosophical weightlifting. Green Party candidate Tania Waikato. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the week, please, ma'am.
My one word to describe this week is faith plant. And I'm not directing that at anyone in particular, but if you can relate that to a certain leader of a certain party, then I'm going to leave that up to you.
And last, but certainly not least, he is one of the most amazing political commentators you didn't know you needed. His thoughts on race, culture and politics in New Zealand makes him a weekly must-read. Dr. Harpreet Singh, kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. One word to describe the week, please, sir.
Chaos.
Chaos?
Probably the best way to describe it.
That's a good way to do it. Let's brothers and sisters, let's get into tonight's show. Issue 1. Will Luxon be rolled? Are we really doing a referendum on MMP? Is this election rigged? Issue 2, Labour rules out Winston. Why is racism so attractive this election? And issue 3 tonight, Green Party $2 billion Marae investment versus Nationals' refusal to cut emissions or fund adaptation. Plus, we'll have a final word at the end of the show, which each panellist gets to go to the mountaintop to see who breaches broadcasting standards this week. My money is on John Tamahiri, and he's not even on tonight's show. Let's kick things off with issue 1, and that is, will Luxon be rolled? Are we really doing a referendum on MMP? Is the election rigged? Simon, the Prime Minister has not had a good week of it. There are leadership issues again, and he seemed to have bumbled into an MMP referendum that no one wants. Thoughts?
Well, the MMP referendum, that's just not going to happen. Yeah, that's a nonsense thing that he said. It's nonsense for all the reasons that his own colleagues have been hinting at, that actually we haven't discussed this, where did this come from? But it's not going to happen because there's no way in the world Christopher Luxon is going to be leading a party with the number of votes in Parliament that would allow him to do it.
Right.
And the second reason, of course, is that if you have constitutional reform, there's a process you go through of debating and discussing and putting together the analysis and all the rest of it that makes it a serious process. Chucking it in, or whatever the phrase he used, chucking it in because there's another referendum is just not the way. And that wasn't much picked up on. It was just another example of how out of his depth this man is. Yes, he will not be there for very much longer.
Should he be coming up with constitutional changes for the entire country in the middle of a ZB interview? I mean, that for me is like, what are you doing?
I think the answer to the question, what are you doing, is that he's now in full-blown panic mode. I mean, isn't that what we have to read into it now? That he has lost a grip of, this is what I'm actually doing, this is the coherent way in which to move forward. He is now panicking.
Yeah. Follow-up question.
And with some reason.
With the gerrymandering of the enrolment deadlines and the revelation that Labour Party MP Willow Jean Prime was somehow bumped onto a dormant Māori role that gets used to dump Māori voters, is this election rigged by the right for the right to win?
I'm inclined to think that the Willow Jean Prime thing is an aberration rather than indicative of something bigger.
It's 115,000 on the dormant role.
150,000.
115,000.
Over 100,000. That's a pretty large
That's a lot
number.
of people,
yeah.
right?
But the question of closing the rolls early, that is just extraordinary. You should be making it as easy as possible for everyone to vote. Yeah. Full stop.
Universal suffrage means something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not just let's try and cut off people from being involved. Tanya, of the top 20 issues Kiwis care about, reforming MMP is nowhere to be seen. It seems that the Prime Minister would prefer to throw out the entire electoral system rather than hold Winston Peters to account. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's a sign of a weak leader who is absolutely spiraling because he has no idea what he's doing. And the other thing that I think smacks of desperation at the moment, as well as the fact that he's calling this emergency meeting to try and keep hold of his own caucus, is the fact that he just continues to make mistake after mistake because he's simply not qualified to do this job, and he hasn't been for this entire term. This man is a CEO. He's a puppet for the corporate interests that plug their money into this party, and he's never been a leader. He is not a politician, and this just goes to show that when the pressure is on, he does not deliver.
Follow-up question, Willow Jean Prime getting bumped onto a dormant Māori roll of 115,000 on top of the changes to the enrolment cut is making it harder for Māori to enrol this election, not easier. Is that on purpose by this government?
Oh, look, this issue's been around for over a year. We spotlighted this issue a year ago when we had a number of high-profile people coming to me who said, hey, look, I've checked and I'm not on the roll, who found out they had been bumped to the dormant roll. I was on marae literally a year ago talking about this issue, trying to highlight to people, you need to check your details, you need to check. It doesn't matter if you voted at the last election, you still need to check. And I've received private emails from people who work for the Electoral Commission that told me about this issue and said to me they've known about it internally for years and they've been trying to get traction internally to have it fixed, and they've just come up against brick wall after brick wall. So this is not a new issue, and the fact that Willow Jean's highlighting it now is great, because we need as much spotlight on all of the ways that this government is trying to stop people from voting as possible.
Dr. Singh, the Prime Minister called for a vote of confidence in his role 4 months ago that was supposed to have drawn a line under the speculation about his leadership. Yet here we are with another round of destabilisation headlines, another emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Will this hurt National?
Absolutely. I mean, it reflects instability in the right, and that's been indicative, I think, since the outset. You know, you've got three parties, three ideologies working together. They don't really fit together, but they've kind of sellotape themselves. So you've got a National Party that just cannot control the situation. So they're kind of stumbling through, getting things passed, and I think what's called the term, the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
So Luxon's in a bit of a jam, and I think it reflects his frustrations as well. I think the comments he made around MMP also reflect frustration, because I think he called them Yahoo and Numpty in the same session.
That's
so
right.
I think National's in real trouble. I don't think he's going to survive.
Follow-up question, would a change of leadership this close to the election help or hinder National? What do you think?
It depends on who they choose.
Yeah.
There needs to be a breath of fresh air. I think we've had that discussion just now as well. I kind of thought immediately Chris Bishop, but, you know, Erica Stanford's there. I think that if they do manage to get somebody in, it could change their fortunes, but it's going to be a tough road in 90 days.
Quick round to you all. The Prime Minister has called another special caucus tomorrow morning. Will he be leader by lunchtime? Simon Wilson?
I think it's unlikely, but I'm also puzzled by the idea that Chris Bishop is a serious contender. Chris Bishop has spent quite some time now
angering Auckland. Auckland don't like him.
Auckland. And it's not just that he's angering Auckland. What he's also done is, but because he has positioned himself as the minister who is arguing for more compact cities, density, for transport and housing to be linked up and so on, he has alienated himself from a large section, I'm sure, of his caucus and of National support who don't see the world in those terms at all. And therefore, it would surprise me enormously that if he wins this vote.
Tanya, is he staying or is he gone by lunchtime?
I think he's staying, but that's only because it's too close to the election for them to take a chance on someone else.
Dr. Singh?
I think he's going.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 2 tonight, and that is Chippy ruling out working with Winston after his race-baiting stunts. Does it mean anything? And why is race becoming such a toxic debate this election? Tanya, better late than never, I suppose. By ruling Winston out, Labour has made a very clear line for voters. You either vote for the racist right or vote for the collective left. Which one do you think Kiwis are going to pick?
Look, I think that the Kiwis, in general, are sick of this. I think that the majority of New Zealanders are really over this racist, divisive rhetoric that's been coming out of New Zealand First and ACT Party thick and fast, and the National Party to an extent, because they've been enabling all of this.
Yes.
And I think that we are going to see a swing towards the left at this election. And I think that the current polls really are not reflecting what's on the ground. I go all over the country and I have people coming up to me every single day of every different colour and creed to say thank you for the work that I'm doing. And for me, it is I guess it's a groundswell that I can see building on the ground. And we get kind of stuck sometimes, I think, in our little political bubbles, especially those of us that are in this world, and we only hear what we want to hear and we only see what we want to see. But when I'm out and about with people on the ground, there are people that are going to be voting at this election that have never voted before. There are people who have voted for Labour and National and other parties their entire lives who are switching. So I think we're going to all be a little bit surprised about the outcome for this election.
Follow-up question, how and why has race and migration become so toxic as issues over the last 3 years?
Oh, it's because this government, and particularly the parties on the far right, are trying to distract from their failure to fix the economy and their failure to do everything that they promised this country that they would do when they were elected. And all they've got left are these really tired and played out distraction techniques that they are taking out of the Trump playbook and transplanting here into New Zealand, because that's what their very rich corporate donors are telling them to do. And that's it. There is no, I guess, actual backbone behind any of this rhetoric that's coming out. They're literally just doing their master's bidding.
Dr. Singh, New Zealand First in double-digit support after the very reactionary and cruel things they have said suggests something very ugly inside New Zealand politics right now. Why do you think this is happening?
The racism? It's a repeat of history. It's been done before, over and over again, whether it be the 1800s of the Chinese, 1920s with the Indians and the Chinese, or 1970s with the Polynesians.
Yep.
And now it's the same thing. Winston's always gone down this road. When they even formed NZ First, they knew that this was going to happen. They just want votes. And for NZ First, it's all about the party vote. They don't care about anything else. And any riffraff, whatever they can find, will run as a candidate. They'll take it. As long as they've got a following, bring your votes to us. Simple as that.
Follow-up question, are Kiwis a lot more racist than we like to think?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was watching a video of Matthew Rata from 1983 saying the same things. You know, walk into an art gallery or you're doing anything, you're always judged. You're always, the racism is there. I get it on the daily. I post about it.
Yeah.
And it's not just New Zealand, it's Australia, and it's the same racism. I couldn't even tell the difference, you know.
The racism is so universal.
It's so universal, and I was like, I thought there would be an Australian twang to it, but it's the same words and the same comments.
Right.
Thousands of them.
Yeah.
New Zealand's absolutely racist.
Simon, one of the tragedies of the National Party over this term has been the way they have been played by Winston and Seymour. What happens if a far weaker National Party gets elected with a far stronger New Zealand First and ACT Party?
I think you have put your finger on the real thing that is terrifying National Caucus members and quite a bit of the National Party at large, which is Winston Peters and, to a lesser extent, David Seymour. They have recognised how damaging New Zealand First is, with its racism, with its really overt racism, to the prospects of the coalition government being re-elected, because they have seen that a vote for National is still a vote for Winston. It's still meaning Winston's back in power.
Yeah.
So that is what I think is really terrifying them, and I think that is what is making them think we need to replace Luxon, because Luxon demonstrably has no idea how to deal with Winston Peters.
Yeah.
Which is why, if you get someone like Erica Stanford coming along, she may well do what Jacinda. Remember Jacinda's the none of your shit stuff?
Yeah.
Erica Stanford strikes me as the kind of politician who will say that to Winston and say it publicly. And that will hearten national people.
Follow-up question. Why is New Zealand First's racism being celebrated and not denounced?
Well, is it being celebrated? It's being celebrated in the corners you might expect it to be. But as I just said, I think it is terrifying a lot of other people. Not because nobody's racist except the extreme, but because it's recognised as a vote loser in the middle, if you like. Yeah, you can't say the quiet bits out loud. You just can't.
Quick round to you all. If there is a leadership coup in National, will Winston use that as a pretext to call a snap election? Tanya?
Oh, I wouldn't put anything past the old dog, would you? But I think he's going to wait this one out.
Dr. Singh?
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. I think Winston's gunning for the prime ministership.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right, Simon.
No, I'm with Tanya
if
on
it
this.
all happens,
I don't see
hold
Winston being prime minister. I actually think even if Chris Luxon keeps his position,
Yeah.
I think he would draw the line at giving the prime ministership to Luxon. I think Tanya's right. I think Winston could do anything, but is likely to wait.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 3 tonight, and that is Green Party $2 billion Marae investment for civil defence versus Nationals' refusal to cut emissions or fund adaptation. The Greens this week launched an amazing policy that would see $2 billion put into a trust for Marae to access for climate adaptation and civil defence frontline work, because Marae often are the first responders when climate events strike. Dr. Singh, the right-wing influencers are already framing this as investment into Marae as racist because they claim climate change impacts everyone. So why should Marae get any extra funding?
I mean, it's infrastructure, right? Nobody wants to recreate it. Marae are already in those positions to deliver that infrastructure.
Right.
Then just do it. It's cheaper and it's easier.
Right.
Logic dictates that, right? And I think it's a brilliant move by the Greens. I absolutely agree with it. I've written about it.
Yeah.
Because my own people do the same thing already.
Right.
So for the Marae's to be now government-backed, absolutely, I think it's a fantastic idea from the Greens.
Simon, government refuses to cut emissions. So shouldn't they fund the climate change adaptation? We just saw Chris Bishop turn down the proposals to deal with slash in Gisborne. Marae are crucial during climate events. So why the resistance to funding them as crucial civil defence?
No, because it's racist. It's about that simple. Yeah, the Climate Change Commission has just told us that we spend, what is it, only 3% of our response to the climate crisis on adaptation.
Yes.
It is astonishing. And so cities, Marae, everywhere where the climate is making us now vulnerable, and that is pretty much everywhere, we know that the government response is deeply lacking. And, you know, the headline issues about what's going wrong with the government are one thing, and that's serious enough. But this underlying thing, this is going to get worse and worse and worse.
Right.
We now have, is it every 8 days we now have a major climate-related crisis in this country? Every 8 days.
Wow. It in 1980 it was once every 3 months. It's now once every 8 days. That's a problem.
A government that's just burying its head in the sludge ain't going to cut it.
Yeah. Tanya, climate change is here. It is real, and it's devastating. Resourcing Marae to be able to be essential civil defence platforms to cope with the climate events we now face is essential. Will the Greens also roll this out to RSAs, schools and libraries to complement what you want to do with Marae?
Well, look, the goal of this fund is to recognise what our marae are already doing.
Right.
They are already providing the civil defence infrastructure that this government needs to respond to what you just talked about. We are in the middle of climate change crisis, and this government is burying its head in the sand and pretending it's fine, it's just a little bit of rain. I think I heard that when they came here right next door to pay their respects to the people that lost their lives right here in Mowal. And for me, I think that we are about to experience what you talked about at the start of this show, because people are not listening. The El Nino weather pattern that is about to hit us this summer is going to have an impact, and it is going to slap people around the head, and they are not ready for it. No. But our marae have always been ready for it. Our people will always be ready for it, regardless of whether or not this government recognises it, regardless of whether or not they fund it. And our policy is in place to provide that funding support. And it's not just for Māori. This is the thing that the racists conveniently forget.
Right.
Our doors open to everyone who needs help, because that is manaakitanga. That is what our culture is built on.
Yes.
We don't turn people away. Even the racists, if they turned up at our marae during a crisis, they would be welcomed with open arms. We would feed them, we would house them. And for, I guess, this government who basically robbed the Climate Emergency Response Fund so that the cupboard was bare when we have all of these climate change emergencies happening every 8 days.
Yes.
This is a response to that. And for me, I think the key thing about this particular policy is that it's not just about climate change. It's about all the other things that our marae do. It's about the support that they give to health services for people that can't get to the hospitals because our health system is crumbling. It's about the support to education because, again, this education system is failing our people. It's about all of the things that our marae are the last bastion for. And so for me, this is the cornerstone of our policy for our people, and I will fight all the way to get this policy implemented.
It's such a brilliant idea. And you're right about that issue with the right. They will try and frame this as giving Mary something. Every marae I've ever known in a civil defence situation, in a civil defence emergency, open their doors to everyone. So why you would have a problem with this kind of investment and recognition is a little beyond me. I was very annoyed that the legislation was held up, the civil defence emergency provisions, that was held up because National didn't like the co-governance language when it came to marae. This government are very quick to praise marae for being there and opening their doors and helping people, but then when the bills turn up and they're nowhere to be found. How will the trust actually work to be able to provide money?
Well, the great thing about the structure of this fund is that it will be out of the hands of the politicians. It will be its own perpetual trust that is going to be managed by hapu and iwi themselves, and it will be self-funding. So the $2 billion seed fund is going to create around $100 million of annual funding, which will go to these things that we've talked about. There's going to be an initial fund of $400 million over the first 4 years to go to those immediate priorities. Yep. And those are things like marae that can no longer afford their insurance because they're in areas that are being hit by these climate change crisis, and other critical pieces of infrastructure that our marae simply can't afford to provide anymore. So for me, this is really an on-the-ground policy that is going to address the immediate needs that our people have to provide for their communities. And as I said, that's not just Māori, that is everyone. One of the things that I know is going to happen in the very near future is that I guess this racism and this division that we see is going to go flying out the window when we face some real climate change crisis. Totally. And what we're going to see is the leadership that we have always seen from our people who will step up, and they will put all of these, I guess, rubbish ideas aside, and they will show New Zealand what it's like to lead from the front.
Yep. Preach. Comrades, we need to wrap the show with a final word. Some of your final word this week, please.
My final word, I want to talk just for a moment about regulatory relief, and please don't
you
switch
know I
off.
love it. You know I love this. I'm the only person who geeks out about exit taxes, for Christ's sakes. Take it away.
So this is resource management reform.
Yes.
But the bill has come back from the Select Committee, the bills, and are now in Parliament and waiting for us to discover what the government finally wants to do with them. Regulatory relief is proposed. And what it will mean is that if you're a polluter and the council has regulations that say you shouldn't be doing that pollution, the council will have to pay you to compensate you for the loss you suffer if you have to stop polluting. Think about that for a moment. On the one hand, that's paying polluters instead of having polluters pay. But on the other hand, councils have no idea what they will be on the hook for. That could be, it's been estimated by consultants who were commissioned by the Environmental Defence Society, up to $2 billion nationwide. They have, because of that, most councils are going to say, we can't afford to take this risk, so they will withdraw their regulations, the limits that they put on abuse of the environment. So what is really happening here is that the government is freeing up, in the name of economic progress, is freeing up the idea that you can now abuse the environment. This is shocking, shocking law.
It's part of that whole move that ACT have been driving, where property rights are more important than human rights.
Absolutely.
Right?
It comes from ACT. So Chris Bishop is the minister in charge, but the Undersecretary is Simon Court, the ACT MP. It's got his fingerprints all over it. And with Bishop's support, of course. So let's not leave him out of this. But it is ACT ideology in a very pure form.
Tanya, your final word this week, please, ma'am.
Yeah, my final word is a mihi to our brother Dr. Harpreet Singh. This is the first time that we've actually shared space together. We've been mates on Facebook for quite a long time, but me mihi ka tika ki a koe i te tūngane. Dr. Harpreet has been backing our people and fighting for our people for a really long time. And I want to acknowledge that because I see you and our people see you, and I want to mihi to you because the work that you've done for our people is so important. And it's also so important for our peoples to continue to be strong together. I knew that this government, when they came in, when they started attacking our people and they started attacking everything Māori, we were just the first ones, right? I knew that they would come for our other coloured peoples. I knew that they would come for every single minority that they could get their hands on. But I really want to thank you for the work that you've done on behalf of our people in particular. You have been one of the most consistent defenders of all of the rubbish that comes out with absolutely brilliant analysis and data. So, kanu te mea te kia koe.
Oh, Lord, that is such beautiful commentary, and Lord, we need you in Parliament, Tanya. We really do. Dr. Singh, your final word this week, please.
I mean, how do I even respond? I'm so humbled, and honestly, it's the words are deep, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful that people are reading my work. I'm thankful that for Tanya's absolutely amazing words. I'm kind of taken aback. My message is to Māori. I said that you have real power in this country. It's constitutional, and that's why they fear you and they want your power. They want to take away your constitutional powers inside the government and local governance and environment and education, and you need to stop them. And the only way to stop them is to vote. So just don't let them. I said you've got fantastic candidates on the Māori role. Amazing. Tanya, fantastic. The way she uses her following, the way she absolutely rocks the Waitangi Tribunal. Amazing stuff. And I've written about it. She's the only candidate I've written about. No other candidate. So Māori are lucky. They have amazing. They have a role. It's absolutely teeming with enrolments. They've got great candidates right across the board. Labour, Greens, TPM.
Yes.
You know, if I could, I would vote for them, but I don't think I can vote in the Māori role. But so just understand. Don't let the ACT UP Party undermine you. Don't let NZ First undermine you. Understand that you're very powerful. That you have the ability to change the course of our country, and you need to do so. Don't just sit there and do nothing. You know, as Matthew Rata said, get off your asses. You know, that's what he said, not me. So I don't want to get in trouble or get a hiding or something, but that's do it, because you're going to save us.
Preach.
And it's true on the general role as well as the Māori role.
Absolutely.
Vote,
Sorry, I should say on all bases.
Party vote.
Don't allow the right to make us feel weak, goddammit. Thank you, comrades. And now to my final word, brothers and sisters. In this election, the right are insinuating that migrants are so alien to our New Zealand values that they are impossible to assimilate and are instead an existential threat to our democracy. Really? Isn't that selling our values out really cheaply? How come, for such patriotic assholes, they think so little of the democracy we stand for? Our nation, Aotearoa New Zealand, whakapapas to a unique Te Ao Māori worldview and an 800-year Western democratic tradition that takes us back to the Magna Carta, the values of which have been sharpened and tested over centuries of friction between king and citizen, Tory and Whig, Catholic and Protestant. These Western democratic values hold a gravity to their logic that demands a citizen engage and protects free speech, no taxation without representation, the recognition of the rights of the individual, freedom of religion, separation of powers, rule of law, and an independent judiciary. It doesn't matter where you come from. The gravity of our values are such that they are good for every single citizen we have. Everyone benefits from free speech, no taxation without representation, the recognition of the rights of the individual, freedom of religion, separation of powers, rule of law, and an independent judiciary. Add to this the communal values of Te Ao Māori, and we have roots to our values so deep and mighty that people coming here to live want to share and adopt. Being multicultural is a strength to our democracy. It's not a weakness. The worth of our values as Kiwis is stronger than the neurotic fears of the right. With the treaty anchored as our formation, our traditions, principles, civil rights and freedoms have an intellectual and philosophical weight to them that all people coming here would cherish, support and adopt. Why is this debate on immigration occurring with a mana-less version of us, dreamt up by the feverish right wing? We are better than the version the right are promoting of us this election. In solidarity, the revolution continues. Ka pai Aotearoa.
The Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. The Bradbury Group is an independent podcast through the Rover Network, sponsored by Wātea News. Everything on the show is an opinion and shouldn't be taken seriously enough to attempt defamation action against us. We were joking. We're never serious about anything. And officially, a small wetter in Avondale is legally the owner. Good luck finding him. Don't forget to follow, like and comment.